Show coming to you from the Rising Eagle Studios here at the Warrior Healing Center in Sierra Vista, Arizona. Today's date is Friday, December 2nd, 2022. And also, it is Fun Food Friday Day today.
Yeah.
We're having the food come down from, starts at 11, goes to about 2 or 3 o'clock. It's going to be put on by the Cooks Club. I have more information on it here in my events that I'll tell you about later in the broadcast. But I just wanted to let you know that that's what we're doing today. And I put on my Facebook page last night, I said I have a special guest because I've been, Bob and I are like really good friends, I think, when you say we're, and we go back quite a few years. And I begged him. He always know because he's very modest and stuff. And I was like, so last night I triple pleased him.
Yeah, 3 pretty pleases.
3 pretty pleases. So he said, well, I guess I can't say no to that. So Bob, thank you, man. Thank you so much for coming down and sitting with us today. I appreciate it. So what we like to do is get to know a little about you and your service and any hobbies or community activities, anything that you like to do. So before we get into your military career, though, I want to start off on how you and I first met, if you don't mind, because bowling, of all things, because Bob's a pretty good bowler, believe it or not.
Heck.
Dirty Rat Bastards was our team name,
DRB.
Team DRB. So tell us a little bit about that, about your bowling.
Well, I you know what, I had after Gulf Storm, after Desert Storm,
right?
I came back and I was here like 6 or 7 months and got on levy for Korea. So they offered me the 11th offered to send me to Bahrain instead of going to Korea. So I said, what the hell? I didn't care. Oh, I can't say that, can I?
Yeah, you can. You sure can. It's language. A military channel.
But anyway, so I went to Bahrain, and then while I was there, I made the 8 list, so they frocked me and sent me to Kuwait. So I ended up being gone a year. And when I came back, practically everybody I knew had left.
Okay.
So, I just started bowling to get out and hang out a little bit.
Just to get out and do something.
And then you asked me to join your team.
Well, I met you from your son because I was doing the junior bowling. It was called YABA at that time. Yaba.
But he was a Yaba kid.
And your son was a very good bowler.
My wife too.
Yeah.
But I was just there.
He's good. I loved your son's team name. We always joke about that, Pink Death.
Yeah.
Kids are so creative. So
yeah. It was him and Mark.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. I'm glad that you could join us, Kathy. That's our boss lady there.
Hi.
So, and speak freely. So you don't have to. Like I said, it's a military channel. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that bowling makes a lot of good connections, especially when you're up on Fort Huachuca because you meet a lot of military people with military backgrounds, so you kind of talk the same lingo and all that. And
I think they let civilians in too,
right?
Because we're the only game in town. But it was still after I retired, I was still hanging out with 100 guys every Thursday night.
Right.
So the camaraderie, because that's what, at least when I retired.
And the beer.
That's what I missed most about the Army.
And the beer.
Was the camaraderie. But you had it at bowling every Thursday. You could make fun of those guys.
Yeah. We had a lot of good times.
Maybe win every once in a while.
Yeah. We had a lot of good times.
It was fun.
Oh, there's my dad is watching too.
Hey, Jack.
Hey. Morning, Dad. So let's talk a little bit about your military career. So first off, I know that your dad was a career Army guy, and
I say I was a first sergeant, but he was the first sergeant.
The first sergeant.
And my dad was the first sergeant.
He set the tone, huh?
Yeah, he was a big man and quite dynamic, and well, for a guy who dropped out of high school and got a GED, he was well read and kind of before his time. So he was really a quite remarkable man.
And he served in Vietnam too, right?
Yes, he did.
Where else did he go? Do you remember?
Well, he was in Korea.
Korea.
And we went to Germany. We went to Germany twice. I was born in Germany.
You were born in Germany.
I was born in Bad Kreuznach.
Oh, see, I thought you were from Fort Sill for some reason.
No, and then because he was artillery.
Right.
So we went to Fort Sill. It tended to be home base. And just like Huachuca is my home base here.
Right.
I tend to come back here.
Right.
So he came back to Fort after me and my sister were born there. And then we came back here, and then we went back in '63 for 3 years. And then,
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm an Army brat. I never even went to see a doctor, a civilian doctor, till I retired.
It just seems like all of your family roots and your history all seems to be in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Right?
All my sisters live there. I had to get, when I was in high school, I had to get out of Lawton, Oklahoma. I was dying there. I don't know why. It's nice. It was a fun place to grow up, but I just needed to get out of there.
So you graduated from high school there, right? Mm-hmm. And then tell us what happened, what prompted you or inspired you. I know the answer, but I want you to share it with our viewers. What inspired you to join the Army?
Well, I liked the traveling around that we did.
Uh-huh.
And I just liked, my dad was, like I say, I watched him and his friends a lot.
Right.
And they were cool. They would come over and they would have parties. They weren't real wild, but they were fun to listen to and fun. They were just cool.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't real popular to join the Army in '74.
Right.
But, Lawton is a military community, so it wasn't that uncommon. So, and I just had to get out of Lawton, Oklahoma. I didn't want to go to school there. I wasn't ready to go to college. I wasn't focused enough.
So what did you do? You just walked into the recruiter's office and say, sign me up, or how did that work?
I did the delayed entry program. I joined almost a year before I left.
Oh, okay.
Because my uncle was a telephone cable splicer. He was in the Air Force.
Okay.
But he was a telephone cable splicer. We got out, he worked for Mountain Bell or the Bell System.
Right.
Whatever they were at the time. And I just kind of wanted to do that. So I joined early to get that specific MOS because there was very few of them in the Army at the time. The school was on Shepherd Air Force Base. And it was like a class of 6. And there would be like maybe 2 Army, 2 Marines, 2 Navy. They taught that MOS for the whole military.
And you learn a skill, right? Yeah, and then if you didn't make the military your career, then you had a good skill.
Yeah, I was never going to retire. That wasn't the intent to join and stay in like I ended up doing.
Right.
I was just going to do 3 years or so and cut.
Even though your dad set a good role model,
yeah,
right?
But I wasn't just going to do it for a career. I don't know why. I was in ROTC in high school. So I knew.
How many years did you do ROTC for?
3.
For 3 years?
2.5. 2.5, yeah.
So when you went in basic training, where did you go?
Fort Polk.
Fort Polk, Louisiana. And then because you already had 2 years, at least 2 years of ROTC training, did you get did you go in as E2?
I came in as an E2.
E2.
Yeah.
And then
tried to hide that fact because I didn't want to be in charge.
Yeah.
They were putting E2s in charge of stuff.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I didn't, and I went in March because I didn't want to. I graduated half a year early, not because I was smart. I just took a lot of classes.
Right.
And I didn't want to go in during the summer because summers in Oklahoma are bad, but summers in the swamp down there, I figured it'd be miserable. So I went in March.
Okay.
But there weren't a bunch of high school kids like me. These were men.
Right.
These were National Guard guys and stuff like that. They're like 28, and I'm like 18. I did not want to be in charge of them at all.
So what did you do? Did you get tapped as being like a squad leader or platoon leader?
Yeah, but I never had to be platoon leader thing.
No?
Goodness. Good God. Like the people that were platoon leader and class leader, they just beat them guys up. But even though I had that little bit of rank, I think they just looked on pity on me and said that kid's not going to be able to boss these guys around.
Right.
They're not going to do
How are you going to earn those guys respect, right?
I wasn't going to. I just kept my mouth shut pretty much for like 10 weeks and got the hell out of there.
So you went to Fort Polk for basic training. And then when you enlisted, I forgot to ask you this. When you enlisted, you got to pick your duty station?
No.
Oh,
No,
you didn't, or
no, I didn't.
you didn't.
I
But
could
you
pick
did
the
pick your
MLS, but I
MLS.
couldn't pick the
Okay.
duty station.
Okay. What year was that you enlisted?
74.
In 74.
Yeah,
Okay.
1974.
And Vietnam, that was tail end of Vietnam right there.
Yeah, I'm considered a Vietnam era veteran, but I'm not a Vietnam veteran.
Right.
So I didn't have to pay for my SGLI. That was free.
Okay.
Because I'm an era veteran. But
so after Fort Polk, Louisiana, where did you go for your AIT training?
Shepherd Air Force Base.
Shepherd Air Force Base. Yeah. So they had Army personnel going to Air Force for training for being a cable. What was it? Cable.
A cable splicer. A telephone cable splicer. It's kind of more of a fixed signal like thing.
Communications and okay.
People call it cable dog, but I wasn't a cable dog. I was a splicer.
And where was the Air Force Base again?
Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas.
In Texas. Where at in Texas?
It's, I guess, towards the middle of the state on the east side. It's like an hour or so from Lawton, Oklahoma.
Is that how you became a Cowboys fan?
Yeah,
back in the day.
Yeah, because I was from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So we,
You didn't have a team there, huh?
No. So we watched the Cowboys.
What was your experience like when you were there for AIT?
It was true. I thought it was pretty cool. Considering other people went to this regimented stuff where they had to march. But I was in the classes, because they were the only ones that did it. They did 2 classes a day. They had a morning class and an afternoon class. So I was in the morning class. So I had to be there like at 6.
Okay.
But I didn't have to march there because it was only me. It was only me and another guy. So we just kind of walked over there and went to class there. It was like college.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
That's unreal.
But we see the Air Force people. They have their fire marches with all their little road guard vests. I'd never seen a road guard vest like those.
Well, because when you're in basic training, you're taught, military honors and to have to try and relay that to other services, because we also had to know other services ranks back then, like the Air Force, and years ago I forgot it too. But
I didn't have to march, and there was not a lot of formations because there was only like 20 Army people there and living in this little barracks, and we had a platoon sergeant, but he had all these shift classes. He just couldn't say fall in and get us all because we were in classes. So there was very few room inspections and none of that. It's kind of, as long as you kept your room clean, we didn't have all that. It was a way easier AIT than most people went through.
And then what was it like going from outside or inside the classroom, then going out in the field work and then happening to apply what you learned in text out in the field? What was that experience like?
The problem is that my first duty station was Fort Lewis.
Okay, Washington.
In Washington, yeah. And it was a long, they don't have these things anymore, it was a long haul cable construction company. Battalion, really. But we didn't do anything. We just said, we didn't go to the field. We were just kind of there. We'd put motor stables pretty much every day. We'd go down and work on these 8 or 9 trucks we had. We over-maintained the damn thing. Right. We'd go add oil. And then the next day, somebody come up and check it again. And, it's overfull. So we take it on the rack and take a little oil out. And the next day, somebody come in. It's all up to interpretation. So
when you went into the Army, you never thought you were going to end up doing that stuff, huh?
Well, no.
Especially at your first duty station.
Yeah, and I watched my dad. They didn't do Army stuff all the time. But we just, I didn't do anything. Every once in a while, we would go TDY. Not a paid TDY because they make us stand at barracks and all that. But we go to Yakima and help those guys out a little.
Where's Yakima at?
It's in Washington.
It's in Washington too? Okay.
It's, I'm pretty sure it's in western Washington. It's kind of in a desert. You don't want to think there's desert in Washington State.
No.
But there is.
Especially with all the rain, because you always think a lot of rain there.
It's a real sandy desert. It's not all of it isn't mountainous and trees.
Wow.
It's a real sandy desert. It's a desert, straight up.
So when you were in Fort Lewis, is that where you met Bowie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How'd that go?
She was the daughter of one of my sergeants. And we just met. They introduced us, and we just kind of hung out. And ended up getting married and all that stuff.
And was this still within your first enlistment?
Me. Huh? Yeah.
Was this still within your... Okay.
Yeah.
She trapped you, huh?
Yeah, she trapped me.
And I can imagine how that's going to go over with when you get home. Right?
She'll be fine.
We love you, Bowie. So, but then after, okay, so now you're married. You're a young enlisted soldier. You're married. You're at Fort Lewis, Washington. And then what happens?
Yeah. Well, I did my year of just motor stables.
Okay.
And then I got on levy to Alaska, to Fairbanks, to Fort Wainwright.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to take her up there because in order to be command sponsored, I would have had to extend for 3 years to reach a 3-year commitment. And I didn't want to stay in Army. I wasn't really going to do that. So I was just going to go up there for 1.5 years on my own and then come back and get out and work for Bell, make all the money and be rich and stuff like that. But it didn't work out. She wasn't doing really well down here. And so we just, I extended and took her up there. I extended so I could get command sponsored and get housing.
Right.
Because if I hadn't, we wouldn't have been
able to afford. You'd have been on the economy.
No, we wouldn't have been able to afford that. That was during the pipeline, and everything was really expensive there.
What was your rank at that time?
I was a Spec 4 when I got there.
Wow, you made how so going from E2 to E4, you made that pretty quick?
Yeah, about 1.5 years. Yeah,
wow, that's good.
Yeah, but I was E2.
Right.
So I made E3 and E4 in Fort Lewis. And then I went to the board. I went to the E5 board in Fort Lewis and bombed it. But they passed me anyway. But I didn't do really well because nobody told me what. They just said, "Get ready. You're going to go before the board next Tuesday." Mm-hmm. And nobody explained to me. I said, "Well, what the hell is that?" And they said, "Well, you just get your uniform looking good." And I did that anyway. And they're going to ask you a bunch of questions. And that was it. No study guides, no preparatory, no nothing. So I went in there and I really pretty much bombed it. Stuff I knew from high school, from ROTC, that carried me. So I didn't totally bomb it, but I didn't do really well. But they passed me anyway. And then when I was in Alaska, the points dropped and there I got Spec 5.
Wow.
Never would have thought. Yeah, one of those really lucky things. Because had I not made it there, I'm not so sure I ever would. Later on, it was pretty hard to get promoted in that MOS. So I was at the very right place at the right time.
I don't even think they have Spec 5, 6, or 7s anymore. I think it's just Spec 4s now.
I haven't looked.
Yeah, it's been a while, so I'll have to ask somebody that's active duty or look. I'll have to Google it. Google knows everything. So after Fort Wainwright in Alaska, you said you were there for 3 years?
I was there for 3 years. It's a good place.
Did you like it?
It was expensive.
Okay.
It was the economy was really expensive. Like gas down here was maybe at the time 50 cents a gallon. It was like $1.25 a gallon up there.
Wow. And
then you had to put a can of heat in every time as a drying agent because it was so cold there. It would keep your gas lines from freezing up, and it was just expensive. Every payday. Well, we only got paid once a month, but every payday, every single body was at the commissary. Didn't have credit cards at the time.
No,
nobody would give you a credit card at the time. So I wasn't going to write a bad check. So everybody went on payday.
So you better know how to budget your money, huh?
Yeah, it was expensive to do anything downtown.
Did you do any fishing while you were there? I understand they got a lot of good fishing.
Yeah, so it's a good thing. But a good thing about it was kind of, they would give you housing and they gave you all the dishes and furniture and forks and everything you really need, they had there for you.
Okay.
So you were kind of protected and you could go to the PXN commissary. So even though you didn't make a lot of money, you could survive. A Spec 4 could survive with a kid. We were okay.
And Bobby was born by then?
Yeah, Bobby was born
in Fort Lewis?
Yeah, we didn't fool around in Fort Lewis. We took care of...
You got married and got right down to business.
Yeah, we took care of business. We got all that stuff over with,
Okay. So I could just picture Bobby being in Fort Wainwright, probably wearing one of those big, what are they, like parkas or whatever? He's a little baby and he's probably made him look like a
It
big
looked like,
fur ball
what
or
was
something?
it, Ralphie's brother or something? Because we would, because you can't keep the kid inside. I mean, it's winter's long and
Right.
really cold. Long, cold winter. So you like spend 15 minutes bundling him up and then take him out. And he'll water around for maybe 5 minutes, and then you run back in the house and take all the clothes off and warm him up.
So after Fort Wainwright, then you're in at that time for how long? At the end of your enlistment, about 6 years, 6 or 7?
I had at the time, baby. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I think so. I'd been in like 5 or 6 years, something like that.
And what year was it you left Fort Wainwright, and where did you go after that?
We came here.
You came to Fort Huachuca.
Yeah, it was in the early 70s.
Okay.
Wait a minute. It was in the early 80s. These dates, I'm really terrible with these dates,
Right.
and I'm bad about it.
So you went to what, 11 Signal?
No, I went to Post Signal.
Oh,
Because I
Post?
was a cable splicer.
Oh, okay.
So, not just a regular cable dog, I was a cable splicer. And I got really lucky because I was at Post Signal in Fort Wainwright. So I actually did my MOS in Fort Wainwright.
Oh,
The whole
okay.
time I was there. I wasn't tactical.
All right.
I was fixed signal. We were in USAC detachment. And it was a little detachment. There was like 20 of us. So it was kind of cool. Again,
Wow.
not a lot of regimented falling in like stuff because it's cold as, there's only 20 of us. And there's nobody really watching us. So we're not going to fall in and it's 30 below. We're just not going to do
Right.
that. We're going to meet in the office and everybody went about their separate ways. But it wasn't as real. And they didn't care. They did care, but you normally shaved at night. You didn't shave in the morning because that's not good to go just to shave and then go out in 30 below. 30 below is a normal
Really
day.
bad on your skin.
Yeah, you can lead to frostbite. So some people would shave every other day.
Well, who knew that? I didn't know that. It'll lead to frostbite.
Yeah, you could, yeah.
Wow. So when you get to Fort Huachuca, are you glad that you're back in the heat and out of all that cold? Or
It was like exactly the opposite of Fairbanks. Fairbanks might have been a little bigger than Sierra Vista, but it was kind of similar to
Right.
Sierra Vista. Except everything was hotter than hell now instead of cold. I fainted like a couple of times the first month or so because I wasn't drinking enough and I was out there working. It's just hot. But you get used to that.
And what was your daily routine or your job when you were doing cable splicing?
I was post signal, so we kind of not a lot of formations because
Okay.
some people were linemen, some people were installers, some people were cable splicers. So we kind of meet in the office and discuss what we're going to do today. Sometimes we get a trouble tick and we go have to find out, a cable got wet out on the ranges. That happened a lot. There was a lot of lead cable in the air back then, and so we'd have to locate where it was leaking and repair it.
And the cable that you're talking about, that's strictly for for the military communications commitment.
No, it was just regular old telephone cable like
telephone
Mountain
cable
Bell
too?
used, just like the Bell system.
Okay.
We used the same equipment as they did, and yeah, we were equitable to. You could take that job and go right downtown.
Okay.
And function. Downtown might have been a little bigger scale, but the equipment we used was the same stuff.
I see what you're talking about now. Yeah. For some reason, I keep equating it with the cables and satellites and all that.
It wasn't tactical that.
The technology keeps changing so much in the military.
Yeah,
too.
and I was never tactical. So. Cable splice was basically a civilian type.
Okay.
But done within the military.
So you hear
not a lot of that tactical cable and tactical equipment. They tended to hock it together.
Okay.
At the end of it had a hock, and you hocked it together, and at the end of that, they would hock it together, and it spliced hardly anything. So, it really wasn't designed to be a tactical MOS.
Okay. So you're here for how many years here at Fort Huachuca?
About 2 years.
About 2 years.
It was a good 2 years. We did really cool work. It was really fun.
Were you E6 by then?
No.
Or not yet?
No, I was a
Spec 5?
Spec 5, yeah.
Okay, so then after you're here for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You're in for now probably about what,
eight or so, I guess. Yeah.
Where did you go next after
But
that?
then I got this letter in the mail, and it says you have been selected to perform as a recruiting duty thing.
Recruiter.
Yeah, that's the first 3 words. If it was the first words, you have been selected, and that changed my life drastically.
For the good or the bad?
Oh, it's just terrible.
Terrible, really?
It was good and bad. I suppose you could say it was good and bad. The first one was I didn't want to be a recruiter,
right?
But that didn't mean anything.
The Army tells you you're going to do it. You got to do it, right?
And so they sent me to Fort Ben Harrison quite quickly. They didn't fool around with this. You know, a couple of weeks later, you're at Fort Ben Harrison and recruiting school.
Okay.
And we all, we were there a week, and we all took the first test and failed it because I don't care. At this point, I don't care whether I failed recruiting school. If that's going to make or break me, let it break me. But I don't. So we all failed it. Well, some people wanted to do it, but most of us tried to fail it.
Was that considered a secondary MOS, or that was just like additional duties?
No, well, at the time.
Or?
But at the end of that first test, everybody who failed it, they called us in the next night for 2 hours, just drilled that test at us over and over again. Those 20 questions over and over and over again. And they made it clear,
you
are not going to fail this tomorrow. They had a guy in the class, Mike, that stuttered really bad, and he wanted to be a recruiter. I guess he didn't like us most, but he stuttered really bad, poor fellow. And so we'd have to do interviews and phone calls and practice and this and that. And they kept him in till the very last week.